Let's get into part 1 of 5 on our series of how to install an IKEA kitchen. So first things first is where to start. How do I even begin to plan this thing? I'll show you a few dimensions that you need to keep in mind that are critical to kind of get you started. Then we'll go into some of the IKEA different cabinet sizes and variations so that you're kind of familiar with what they have, and then from there you can just kind of start piecing it all together. Then we'll go through some of the just standard dimensions of like walkways, fridges, stoves, dishwashers, stuff like that. Then we'll just give you a few tips on how to actually build some of the boxes. If you're unaware, IKEA has a 3D kitchen planner on their website. That's going to be one of the tools you're going to need and use. It's very, very handy. It helps you visualize. So, you know, this is a new kitchen that we're doing today, but if you're planning your kitchen that's already existing and you want to change it up, I strongly suggest just going around and taking a bunch of dimensions, taking the dimensions of your windows, the widths of all your walls, and you can input those into the program so that it's a 2-scale drawing. That way you can see it from a bird's eye view. You're not looking at your existing kitchen and you see the layout as it is right now, so you may not be able to see new layouts. So put all your dimensions into the program, and then you can see it from a fresh set of eyes, and maybe you can switch up the layout so that you enjoy your new kitchen a lot better. And if you're not into computer programs, stuff like that, this is a scaled ruler. Pick one of these up, a square, and just do it old school like I do quite a bit. In this scenario, there's at least 2 critical dimensions that you need to be aware of. One, obviously depending on your layout, but tons and tons of kitchens out there are based with the sink is in the center of a window. So that's one thing that you can't really change. If you want it centered in the window, that's a known fact. So right here, the center of this window is our sink. If you're cramped for space, you can go a 24-inch cabinet for just a single bowl sink. You can do a 30-inch cabinet for like a big sink and then a small one, or standard is a 36-inch cabinet for the dual bowl sink. So here, this is a critical dimension. What I did is when I put all of this into the IKEA program, I took my dimensions. So let's say I went from the wall to the edge of the trim, and I said that was my window size. Then I measured from the outside of trim to outside of trim. What that allows me is, that way if I have an upper cabinet here, then I know for a fact, okay, if I have 32 inches and the cabinet's 26, I know I have space beside the trim, right? If you measure just to the window, then you're like, oh, I have lots of space, and all of a sudden the cabinet goes and tries to sit on the casing. It's like, oh, darn it, right? Like I miscalculated. So measure to the outside of the trim like that. I found center based on outside of trim to outside of trim. So all I did is I measured that. I measured it full width, did a little quick math. So I'm 6'4" and a quarter. So that's 3'2" and an eighth. Then what I do is, to make darn sure, when I mark it out, I actually mark it that way, and then I mark it out from the other dimension, just in case there's lots of times where I'm off on my math. This way I know that I'm center. I'm not an inch out or something weird. This is the center line here. Then what you do is you just go 18 inches either way, and that's where this cabinet has to go. Right? It has to be centered with the window or it looks goofy. The other thing is just make sure that all these pipes are going to fit in, which they do. So this is a known. This can't change. The other thing that can't really change are your corner cabinets. So the second thing that I base my layout and my plan off is one of 2 options for corner cabinets. So this is one of them. This is, I don't know what you call it specifically. I just call it a lineal one. So they call it a 47-inch. It's 46 3/4 exactly this dimension. I try to implement this corner cabinet as much as possible because I like the unique carousel that it has inside, you can utilize the inside corner. Whereas on a Lazy Susan, you typically can't. You kind of got to crawl in there, right? Whereas this one, it pivots right on this post. So as it pivots out, and then it's actually on a slider, you can pull this carousel straight out. Then when you're done, you just push it back in and basically pivot it back into position. So this corner I try to use as much as possible. But if dimensions don't work, then you go to your typical Lazy Susan style, which this one is 38 inches this way, 38 inches this way. So then we use one of two options for the corners. And then from there, we basically get into what other cabinets are available and what do we want for options. And you just basically spread the kitchen out from there. So let's get into some of the cabinet sizes that IKEA has available. They have a ton. One thing that I'd recommend is you can actually pay to go and see an advisor at IKEA. So if basically none of this is making sense, or if you need just a little extra backup, you can pay, sit down with an advisor and go through a plan, which is very highly recommended. I had a client do that just recently and they were very happy with it. So that's always a good plan. The other thing is they actually do make a book. I forgot to bring it today, but it's just a booklet with all the different configurations and box sizes. So that way, if you're not computer, you can just flip through the book, figure out your options there. Let's talk about base cabinets. 15 inches wide, 18 wide, 24, 30, 36. That's your standards. Those are a variation of options, whether you want doors, 2 drawers, 3 or 4 drawers. That can be changed out at any time. So that'll be all in the programmer. Then you have your two types of corner cabinet, and then a whole slew of, different uppers and all that, but we won't get into that right now. We're gonna just base our layout off of the base cabinets and build from there. The other thing that you wanna familiarize yourself with is just some of their panels that they have available. So those are used to, let's say, cap the end over here. We wanna cap that end so it's a finished panel. Or let's see here, over here, as we get building, you'll be able to visualize it better, but when these cabinets run this way, we need to do a finished panel on an inside corner. So they have basically a whole bunch of different panel sizes that are available. You can cut and use, right? Here's some of the panel sizes you need to be familiar with. That way you know your options and I like to know so that I can customize certain aspects of the install. But let's just run through this. So this is what they call a 15 by a 42.5 filler. So that goes onto an upper cabinet. It's a side panel for the uppers that are 40 inches tall. They also have uppers that are 30 inches tall, which are just your standards. And then they also have ones that go above a microwave or above the fridge that are 15 or 20 inches high. When you go to actually order your kitchen, talk to an advisor. They'll run through all the options, make sure you're happy with all your selections, and they can offer other input too, which are nice, because sometimes the programmer doesn't have every single option available, or it's hard to figure out. Where like some cabinets you have where you can pull the doors up and all that stuff. Like they have a million different ideas and different configurations. So I do like that about it. It's always good to double check things. But yeah, so this panel is 42.5 tall. That way, if you want under cabinet lighting, you just flush it at the top, let the bottom hang past your 40-inch upper, and then you can just install a valance and hide your under cabinet lighting. Or if you don't want cabinet lighting, I just cut the top 2.5 inches off. You don't see the cut edge on the top side, and then I leave my finished edge on the bottom. So that's just an upper panel. But I use those for fillers. I rip them down, I nail them together, as you'll see as we begin to install more. This panel is made to cover the end of a base cabinet or a lower. They're call it a 24 by 30. The actual size is a little bit different, but when you look at it on the programmer, 24 by 30, they're made just to cover that but like I said, I cut them down. I use them for other fillers on inside corners, things like that. Then they have what they call a dishwasher panel, which is a 25 by 36. These are handy when you start getting into islands and customizing. They're a bigger panel, so if you want to bring your paneling down to the floor, or you just need something bigger, these are handy for that. So we'll show you how we implement those into the system. They also make a 36 by 96, which is a fridge gable, or they make some that go on the side of a pantry unit that are the big tall ones. So they make those, so those work great for islands and that as well. And this one is a 15 by 90. It's made for a shallow pantry unit that's 90 inches high. So some of their pantries they're either 80 or 90 high, depending if you go with a 30-inch high upper or a 40-inch high upper. And we'll go through some of the math and show you how the system works, heights and all that, when we start getting into building toe kicks. The other thing I use this panel for is because I don't use the IKEA legs, we build our own plywood bases, and I just do that because I feel that I'm more comfortable with it that way. I was trained that way. It's a little more custom, it's stronger. Obviously, I'd recommend doing it the IKEA way. They're way smarter than me and they have the system fully figured out. To go back around, I actually ripped this down and use this as my finished toe kick. They have a vinyl toe kick finish, but it's difficult to attach to the custom plywood base. That's why I just take some of these 15 by 90 panels, cut them down, and I just brad nail those on. And the other thing that I do is I actually cut it so that I put the finished edge down, and that way if there's water or you spill, you're not soaking it up through a cut edge. And yeah, I waste a little bit in the center, but they're so affordable that a little bit of waste, not a big deal. There's tons of info that we're gonna cover over this series, and I'm probably not gonna hit all the points all at the same time because that's just way too much info. So just stay with us. We're gonna cover all the details as we go along. So if I miss little things, just keep watching. We'll probably cover them as we go. So standard sizes. A stove is typically 30 inches wide. Now there's newer stoves that are 36, but most common are 30 inches wide. Your cabinet to the top of your countertop is 36. Now we'll calculate this height, but typically just traditional is around 18 inches from the top of your counter to the bottom of your uppers, and we'll get into the rest of that. A dishwasher's 24 inches wide. Your walkway, you gotta be minimum 3 foot of walkway. Your fridge, older school fridges are 30 inches wide. And then they start, as they progress, now they got some 33s, and now the newest ones are 36 inches wide. So that's something that you need to work into your plan as well. Like in this scenario, we could have just done like a 33-inch opening, but that limits the fridge he can buy in the future. So we just did a 38 about a 38-inch opening. Then he can upgrade fridges all the way down the road. And as we keep rolling, we'll just pick up more tips and ideas. So the other component that is a factor or could be a factor for you is the location of your stove or your range. In this scenario, yes, it is going here. If you want to change your layout, just keep in mind wherever your power is, you can basically shift that 8 or 10 inches to the left or right, as long as you can still plug the unit in, or if your gas is still available, you can manipulate that. So it's not like a set in stone factor like the sink is or the corner cabinets. Your stove can be manipulated a little bit. Now in this scenario, we found center of the range hood, leveled or plumbed all the way down, and then we went 15 inches either way, and then from there, that's how we calculated which cabinet goes in which position. So now that we've covered just briefly different IKEA cabinet sizes, a couple of the components to consider when planning your kitchen, and just some of the other dimensions that you need to know, like walkway widths and stuff like that. Now we can actually get into measuring it out and laying it out and figuring out which cabinet can go there, what we need room on the inside corners to clear handles and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into that right away. So yeah, we've covered all that. So let's just jump into it. So what helps me figure out a layout for my kitchen is just basically marking it out on the walls and doing pencil marks, figuring out what's gonna fit where. So let's just do that. We found the center of our window, and let's just run through it real quick here. So I want a double sink, so I need a 36-inch cabinet. So it's 36, 18 inches is center. This factor is not going to change because I want to stay centered of this window. So here, I just marked this out, 36-inch sink. Then over here, I'm cheating a little bit because I know which cabinet's going this way. I guess for this scenario, what I would do is, like I said, we mark the exhaust, we mark it plumb all the way down. I know, okay, my range has to go here. Find my center. I go 15 inches because I need 30 inches for the width of my stove. And I mark those out. All right, so I know exactly where the edge of this cabinet needs to be. So now I just measure what's the distance from there to the wall. I have 37 and an eighth. So that'll work perfect because I can put a 36-inch cabinet. The cabinet can be here. I don't need a filler panel because the stove hides the edges of the cabinets. Then I have 1 1/8 inches on the left side over here that I can run a filler. Then when I pull the drawer open, I have clearance. If I have door trim or something over here, my door will clear it. Or if you have an outside corner bead, like in a bathroom, for example, they're usually built out a little further. So if the cabinet was right tight against the wall, and this wall was even a little bit crooked, or you had trim in the way, you go to open the door or the drawer, and bang, you'd scrape the wall or hit the trim. So that's why I gave myself that 1 1/8 inches over here. So then over this way, here's my cabinet based on the center of my range. Let's see what we have to the wall. We have 48 and 7/8. I know that lineal type corner cabinet is 46 3/4. What's beauty about that cabinet is I can just shift it this way, line that up there. Like I said before, I don't need a filler panel, so I don't need any extra space. And that buys me a little extra space, as I'll show you later, on just fillers in the corner, making sure that doors and drawers and all that clear each other. We have our 36-inch sink here. This lineal type cabinet, we know is going to be, it's going to be actually 24 deep, but we for surely need room for at least the door, which is 3/4 inch. So this is a door here. You actually need a little more room than that. And we might as well jump into that right now and show you why we need extra room in that corner. So this is what it would look like kind of sideways. Hopefully you can visualize it, but we had 24 inches to here. The door on it running this direction is we need 3/4 inch thick there. Then we need a little bit of a space because this is just kind of a handle drawn, not to scale necessarily, but just to show you, I need a handle, so I can't have a cabinet all the way up tight here. I need a few inches of space so that when there's a drawer over here, it can pull and pass this handle. And I got some sketches that will show you as well on that. So now I need to figure out what cabinet can go here. So I go from my sink cabinet to the front of my door of my corner cabinet. I have 31 1/4. Like I said, I need space, so I'm going to put a 30-inch cabinet here. It's borderline too tight, but it's going to work. I've already checked. So we're going to put a 30-inch cabinet here. That works great. You could, you have options with the system. You could do a 24 with just a bigger filler, or manipulate and work a couple of cabinets based on what you want for your design. Typically you want your dishwasher next to your sink. It's easy for the plumbing. So we have our 36-inch sink cabinet here. I need 24 inches this direction for my dishwasher. Once again, these cabinets don't need fillers because you'll never see the sides of them. So here's my dishwasher. Then from there, it's basically open range. What do I want this kitchen to look like? The customer wanted a peninsula, and on the peninsula, the countertop will overhang 10 or 12 inches so people can seat there. How it ended up working out is we just installed another one of those lineal corners. So 46 3/4. So that goes there. Then this is the back side of our peninsula. Then we just laid it out. We're 24 inches this way. We had to double check a few things because as you back up, we needed a walkway space, but we've cleared that, and we'll show you how we got lots of space there. So then, same thing, I just lay it out. I have 24 inches this way. I've left space for an inside corner, so handles will clear each other. Then from there, it's basically, what do you want here? How big do you want it? And what we ended up doing, we just did 3 banks of 30-inch drawers. So just 30, 30, 30, and it ends up working out very, very close. So at the end of this cabinet is just pretty much in line with this wall that the fridge is tucked away in here. But what's nice about this is when you measure, we have over 4 feet of space as a walkway. So that was part of the planning process, is figuring out, okay, from the dishwasher, how far do we need to take it so that the peninsula will work, so we have the walkway. Now we have the layout that we're happy with. From the peninsula to the outer wall over here, we have room for chairs, but we also have over 10 feet of space for a dining room. So you can still have a big dining room. It can be long, you have company over, you can extend that baby right out. You can still have people sitting here. So it's gonna be a nice little kitchen. And last but not least, this is where the fridge location's going. We will put an upper cabinet above it. The customer hasn't decided if he wants a filler in to fill that gap between the cabinet or not. So we'll figure that out as we go, but this is where the fridge is. And as the course progresses, you'll see this come together and it should all make a lot more sense. So that's the end of part 1. Part 2, we'll get into the toe kicks, building the wood bases, all the dimensions and math involved with that. So stay tuned for part 2.